So, are you fascinated by the glamour of Bollywood and the fast-paced world of Indian startups?
Today, we're diving deep into these two seemingly different worlds. We'll uncover some surprising parallels and, of course, some key differences. It's interesting, when we were discussing what to cover today, you specifically wanted to explore this concept of power law dynamics.
Right, and it's something that really shapes both of these industries in India.
I think when people hear power law dynamics, it might sound a little intimidating.
Yeah, maybe a bit, but it's actually pretty intuitive.
Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for us.
So basically, it means that in both Bollywood and startups, a tiny number of massive successes drive most of the rewards. Take a Bollywood blockbuster, for example. One single movie can define an entire year at the box office.
Totally. Like Pathan, that recent film. It
Exactly.
seemed like everyone was talking about it, and it absolutely crushed it at the box office.
That's a perfect example. And the same thing's happening in the startup world, too. Yeah, only a small number of companies ever reach that coveted unicorn status.
Unicorn status
A
being.
billion-dollar valuation.
Okay.
But those unicorns, they often determine the fate of an entire venture capital fund.
Interesting. So it's like this high-stakes game in both industries.
Absolutely.
Everyone's chasing those massive wins. But what does it take to actually become a winner?
Whether it's a blockbuster film or a unicorn startup, there's got to be some kind of star quality involved.
Definitely. Talent is everything.
Okay.
And both Bollywood and the startup world, they're constantly searching for that next big thing.
Makes sense.
Bollywood wants that charismatic actor, the director who just knows how to tell a story that resonates with millions.
And for the startup world,
It's about finding that game-changing idea, the tech that's going to disrupt the entire market.
so it's all about impact, right?
Exactly. Identifying the potential for huge impact from the very beginning.
I imagine, though, that the way they scout for that talent is totally different.
You're absolutely right.
Bollywood, they often rely on these established networks.
Yeah.
Film families, acting schools, just word of mouth.
It's a world built on connections.
Ah, okay, so who you know matters.
To a large degree, yes. But the startup world,
Yeah,
they thrive on disruption.
interesting.
They're looking for talent in these unconventional places. Hackathons, pitch competitions.
I heard about those.
And then you've got venture capitalists scouring the scene, eager to back the next big thing.
It's amazing how each industry has adapted to find that star quality, as we were saying. But, I mean, finding the right people is only part of the equation, right? Both Bollywood and startups, they've gone through these huge ups and downs. It seems like, especially pre-pandemic, there was this frenzy of valuations. It felt like everyone was just chasing the next big valuation.
Absolutely. The pre-pandemic period, it was a time of massive growth.
Right.
But honestly, there were also a lot of inflated expectations in both industries. You had these big budget productions everywhere in Bollywood. Startup valuations, they were going through the roof, and it felt like the good times would never end,
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit.
And that changed everything, I'd imagine.
Completely. It was a defining moment.
So for Bollywood, productions halted.
Yeah, theaters shut down.
Right.
And suddenly they had to embrace these digital platforms. Exactly.
But for startups, I'd imagine, those already in the digital space, it was like sink or swim.
Right. Some really thrived because people were suddenly so reliant on online services.
Right. Like out of necessity almost.
Exactly.
Okay.
The pandemic really forced Bollywood and the startup world to take a hard look in the mirror.
Yeah.
It wasn't about chasing valuations anymore. It was about survival.
Right.
They had to figure out how to stay afloat when all that hype died down.
So when the tides recede, as they say,
Yeah.
you see who's been swimming naked.
Exactly.
How did they do it? How did they adapt?
Well, one big thing was this idea omnichannel.
Omnichannel.
Okay, it's not just about releasing films in theaters
Right.
or building a single app for a startup.
So for Bollywood, does that mean they had to embrace streaming?
Pretty much.
Because, I mean, for the longest time, there was this resistance.
You're
And,
right.
like, streaming, that's a threat.
Exactly.
Like to the big screen experience.
Yeah, and the pandemic made it clear that reaching audiences wherever they are, whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, all these platforms, that was crucial.
Essential.
Yeah, essential, yeah.
And for startups, it's about going beyond just the app.
Definitely. It's about creating that seamless experience across every channel.
Like online, social media, even like brick and mortar stores, if they have them.
Exactly. You've got to meet your customers where they are.
It's interesting how both industries had to completely rethink how they reach people.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have to ask about AI, though. It feels like it's shaking things up in both of these worlds.
AI is a game changer, no doubt. In Bollywood, we're already seeing it used for special effects, even for writing scripts.
I read that some of the music is being composed with AI now.
It's incredible how fast it's moving.
But I imagine there are also some anxieties about all this.
Of course, while it's exciting,
Right.
it also raises questions about the future of work.
For sure.
In Bollywood, there's this feel that if you rely too much on AI, you might lose that human touch.
Yeah, that artistry
Exactly.
that makes a film special.
And in the startup world, there's the fear of jobs being automated.
So it's this double-edged sword, in a way.
Absolutely.
It's like there's all this potential for creativity, for efficiency, but it's also changing the landscape of jobs.
Exactly. It's complex.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers.
Well, we've talked about some really interesting similarities.
Mm.
The power law dynamics, the talent hunt, the ups and downs of those valuations, omnichannel,
Right.
and now this whole AI revolution.
Right.
But I'm guessing there's some pretty big contrasts between these two worlds, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest is the time factor.
Okay, how so?
In Bollywood, a film's success, it's judged pretty quickly.
Opening weekend, right?
Exactly. Those first few weeks are crucial.
But for a startup,
It can take years,
years.
years to know if it's going to work or not.
That's a big difference.
It is, and it plays into how success is defined in each industry.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So a Bollywood film, even a hit film,
Mm-hmm.
might be limited by things like language, cultural context, even the number of screens it's on.
But a successful startup.
They have the potential to scale so fast,
And globally.
especially in tech.
Right. The internet changes everything.
Exactly.
A startup can launch in India today and be a global phenomenon in what feels like overnight.
That's the power of technology.
Wow, that's a huge contrast.
And that brings us to another big one, failure.
Ooh, the dreaded F word.
Right.
Yeah.
In Bollywood, a flop is very public.
It's like everyone knows,
And it can be brutal.
but in the startup world,
It's almost
like it's part of the journey.
exactly. It's about failing fast and learning from it.
It's interesting how the startup world has embraced that fail-forward mentality.
Right.
While in Bollywood, it can feel like a bigger setback.
Definitely a different cultural context.
Right. But I imagine both industries still value a clear exit strategy.
Absolutely. And that's another interesting contrast.
How so?
Well, in the startup world, the goal is often that big payout,
Okay.
either an acquisition by a bigger company
Mm.
or going public, doing an IPO.
Right, the classic.
It's all about getting that big return on investment and then moving on to the next thing.
But Bollywood, it doesn't really have that same structured path, does it?
No, not really.
I mean, I'm sure successful films make money for years, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Distribution rights, merchandise, music.
All of that. But there isn't that same exit strategy built around being acquired or going public.
So it's a different kind of reward.
For sure.
It's more about that cultural impact, I imagine.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been so insightful.
Glad to hear it.
I mean, it's amazing to see how these two industries, they have these unexpected parallels, but they also exist in these completely different worlds.
What's really interesting to me is how all of this reflects bigger trends we're seeing everywhere.
Like what?
Like that shift towards sustainable profits that we talked about.
Right.
That's happening across so many industries right now.
Makes sense.
The whole global economy is going through it.
Interesting.
Bollywood and startups, they're like these little microcosms of these bigger forces.
It's like they offer us a glimpse into the future
In a way, yeah.
of how creative industries might evolve.
Absolutely.
So for someone listening who's fascinated by Bollywood and the startup space,
Mhm.
what would you say is the big takeaway here?
That's a great question. I think adaptability is key.
Right.
We talked about how both industries had to adjust to the pandemic,
Mhm.
to new technologies like AI, and to how people are consuming entertainment.
Yeah.
That ability to be agile, to pivot,
Okay.
to change course when you need to.
You need that everywhere, right? Not just in these fields.
Exactly.
It's not about resisting change. It's about, like, learning to surf those waves.
Oh, said.
And, you know, while the risk is different in both these fields,
Sure.
they both require a certain comfort with the unknown.
Yeah, you've got to be okay with a little uncertainty.
But with great risk comes great reward.
Sometimes, yeah.
And both these industries have the power to create incredible wealth and to really leave their mark on culture.
No doubt about it.
This has been amazing. It's given me, and I hope you listening as well, a whole new perspective
Me too. It's been great chatting with you.
on these dynamic, constantly evolving industries.
For our listeners out there, I'll leave you with this thought.
Okay.
As we move further into this world where everything's digital,
Hmm.
the lines between Bollywood and the startup world are going to get even blurrier.
Oh, interesting.
We're already seeing startups focusing on entertainment,
Makes sense.
using tech to change how we watch movies and experience content.
Wow, it really makes you wonder,
It does.
what's next for these two worlds?
Absolutely.
This has been The Deep Dive, and thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of Bollywood and the Indian startup ecosystem.